I am so jazzed about this moment because this is the lesson where our story comes to life. We picked our audience in lesson 3, an audience that needs what we give them. And in lesson 4, we walked through a simple, predictable way to figure out what makes them tick. Remember, that was the part where I describe it as dissecting our audience's brain. And if that's too gross for you, it's just figuring out what makes our audience tick. What we offer our audience is valuable. They need it, but they also need to do something to get the value that we provide. They just don't know it yet. We are going to help them understand something so human, so simple. We're going to help them understand that doing what we need them to do is the action that is honestly in their best interest. Doing what we want them to do is going to make their life better. We just need to connect what they believe, what they desire, what they hope for, what they need with what we offer. And that's what we're going to do in this lesson. So here, in lesson 5, is where we build that story. This is where we create the structure of your story, the story that becomes the main message you can use over and over and over again, from a conversation of just a few minutes to a content driver for your whole website or even some sort of formal presentation. This is the step where we connect what makes us special to what our audiences want, to what they need, to what they crave. And I have never seen anything like this done just as simply and as effectively as what we're about to cover. So this is the step where we're going to map. I use that word a lot, so I just want you to get used to it. It just means connect, but where we're going to map the desires of our audience to our value. Now, if you want to be persuasive and you want your ideas to win, this is the step that's going to separate you from almost everyone else, right? This is the step that automatically tailors. And that's the real key thing, right? It's tailoring your message. You've got all this basic stuff that you know about yourself and about your company. This is the process. This is the lesson that automatically tailors your stuff, your content, all the things that make you special, tailors it to your specific audience. It's wildly more effective that way and wildly more persuasive. And we're going to do it in this sort of deliciously low-tech, old-school way to make sure the purity and the simplicity of this approach gets kind of deep into your bones. As I've said before, this is new to you. So we're going to go through it step by step, and we're going to go slowly and take our time. And for this first audience, that's the way you'll do it. You're going to do it in a manual process. And if you have a second audience, you'll probably also go through those steps once again. But after you do it a few times, and as you think about your audience desires the same way we did in the last lesson, you're going to start to connect to your audience desires with the things that you can offer. And you're going to be able to do it more and more quickly. And eventually, because this is a new era of your life as a more persuasive person, eventually you'll make those connections so quickly, you'll do it almost automatically in conversation. And as you build that skill, you are literally becoming more persuasive and more influential every day with every person you meet. Now look, anytime I make a big claim like that you'll be able to connect these dots and connect to your audience almost unconsciously, anytime I say something like that, I always put pressure on myself to make sure that you and I can really both believe it. And for that, I'm just going to go back to a comment I made in a previous lesson. When you're talking to someone you love, you probably have heard yourself start to say something like, "Honey, you're going to hate this, but..." What comes out of that is you do know how to adjust your story automatically to fit what someone cares about. And you probably do it way more often than you realize, which means, yes, you are doing it almost unconsciously. We're going to give you that same kind of superpower with all of your most important audiences. You're going to be more persuasive. You're going to be better at connecting with all sorts of people. And when you do that, you won't just improve your business, you're going to improve your life. And I'm sorry to push this so hard, but it's so critical to your long-term success. The reason this works over and over again with our most important audiences is we are not tricking people. We are connecting with what people want and need. So we're truly helping them. We are persuading people to do what's in their best interests. So we're not just helping ourselves, we're helping all the people who matter to our success. Please tell me you like the sound of that, okay? So let's dive in. Let's get going. The first thing I'll ask you to do is bring back your list of audience desires. You remember this image from a previous lesson, right? If you've already started this, grab it. If you're going to do it later, that's totally fine. To have an example that we can look at together, we're going to go back to our friends at Simple Sprouts Seed Company, and we're going to bring back the desires of their most important audience, the frustrated gardener, right? So as you remember from last time, I circled the top 5 items for the frustrated gardener in red, and I double circled, take less time, right? Because I think that's the most important, the very most important thing. So those are the ones I'm going to focus on today. What I'd say is for your own stuff, feel free to bring over just the top, whatever, 3 to 5 audience desires. You can always go back for more to make a longer story, but in the vast majority of the cases, your story is going to be most powerful, most persuasive if you just focus on the 3 to 5 things that your audience cares about most. If they have other questions, they can ask you, but we want to get to the things that matter most. And getting rid of these other things, these things that are less important, that's going to make your task easier, and it's just going to make this whole process less confusing. Before I leave that last point, this is also one of those kind of two birds with one stone moments. You really will get more confused if you try to focus on too many desires, and you'll do too much work. And a task that should be a kind of a fun walk through the mind of your audience is going to be a whole lot less fun if you try to bring in too many things. But that's not the only important reason to narrow down your focus to only the most important items. The most important reason to focus only on the most important items is that story has got to be simple in order to be effective. Maybe you have a deep thinking, hard to please audience who really does care about a lot of things, but if you try to deal with everything they care about, they will get lost in the detail and they will forget everything you say. When you focus on the few things that matter most, your audience will love that you really get them, and you'll inherently have a simpler, more persuasive story. So clear out the less important things and let's use what matters the most. Okay, now let's also grab the list of company capabilities, right? All the things that make our product special, our idea, our initiative, whatever it is, all the things that make our product special and make us special. And let's lay them out side by side. You can do this on paper, or you can use a whiteboard, or as far as I'm concerned, you can use chalk on the sidewalk. I don't really care. The key is making a list, really making that list, and being ready to really draw some lines between items on the left and items on the right, which is what we're about to dive into. The magic happens at that moment we connect these two lists. And it's crazy easy. We just draw a line to connect every top audience desire to the matching capability. So let's just start. Seeds that really grow, well, that's a big priority. And more seeds per pod, well, that one helps. That one's really simple, right? Eat what we grow, that was a desire. Eat what we grow, well, that's edible plants. Check, that's easy. And by the way, I encourage you to actually draw these lines. Draw lines between these items on your own sheet with your own information. I gotta say, as adults, we don't draw lines between things much anymore, right? So maybe it'll kind of feel a little funny the first time. Please don't let that hold you back. I do this, and I have done this exact exercise just like this with CEOs and the heads of giant organizations. No one pushes back because they see the immediate staggering value. Everyone gets on the same page with what matters most. What does our audience want, and how do we help? So let's finish up. Don't get too dirty. Well, that's one of our big benefits, right? So that connects to our wrappers, right? That's core to who we are. Connect my kids to nature. That's one of those places where we get lucky. In lesson 2, one of the things I said was reconnecting people to the earth was part of why we started this company. This is exactly the kind of thing that Simon Sinek, maybe you've heard that name, Simon Sinek, he calls starting with why. Why does our company exist? If you're interested, and I really hope you're interested, just go to YouTube and search for the phrase, start with why. Start with why. And Simon is going to be the first hit. You're probably going to see a few different versions where he's done it in different locations to different audiences. So my 2 cents is really simple. Just watch whichever one has the most views. You're going to get the idea really quickly. The video's short. It's really good stuff. Anyway, if you have an audience who cares deeply about something that also matters to you, remember they said connect my kids to nature. We said it was going to reconnect people to the earth, right? Those are kind of connected. If you can find a place where something that matters to them is part of who you are, your core, don't hide that passion. You will have customers or collaborators or just friends for life, all right? All right, so finally, we hit our number 1, double circle desire, save me time. As I'm going to talk about elsewhere, save me time is such a universal desire nowadays. Never miss a chance to help there and never miss a chance to talk about it. In our case, our core concept of pods that have seeds and dirt and fertilizer, it delivers on that top desire of save me time. And I promise, when my core concept matches one of my audience's top desires, I probably don't have to tell you, right? It makes me smile. I know it's going to be the start of of my story. On the off chance you don't have a capability that matches a top desire, and you know what, that could happen. You're in control. This is your business, right? You can always refine your idea or your product to match what you know your audience needs, and now you're doing it from a point of strength, from a point of knowledge. And the key is that you know it now, not after they say no and you're trying to figure out why. All right, so the lines are connected. Here's what I ask you to do. Just take a moment and pause and breathe and think about the power of what you're doing here by simply drawing lines from the top things our audience desires to the great things our idea offers. We know how to tell people exactly how their priorities will be served, how their problems will be resolved, how their life is just going to get easier because of our idea, because the benefits of what we want that audience to do or buy or approve or just believe. This is absolutely massive, and it's totally different from what, at least in my experience, the vast majority of people do. This single, simple step raises you way above the crowd. Okay, one last point about matching. Sometimes multiple benefits of our product or our idea or our initiative, multiple benefits, multiple things that make us special, work together to satisfy an audience priority. And when that happens, it's totally fabulous. It's fabulous because your audience is telling you how to build your story. Benefits that work together to deliver an audience priorities almost surely belong next to each other when you tell your story, right? I mean, that's pretty simple. In our example, I'm going to add 2 more lines. I know that one of the best ways to connect kids to nature is also to get them to eat what they grow. So I'm going to add that line. It would, in our case, there's lots of kids that don't like vegetables, but when they grow it, they suddenly get really interested, right? So that's going to be valuable. That's another one. To keep people excited about eating what they grow, we also send out these monthly recipes. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to match that up too. And at this point, I know you know how to do this, so I'm just going to blow through it. But just to be complete and maybe to avoid some emails telling me that I left this out, I'm also going to connect seeds that really grow, which is one of those top level, very spoken desire seeds that really grow. I'm going to reconnect that to we recommend varieties to fit your location. And actually, for that matter, we can even connect that to some of our support things, our phone, our tutorials, and our guarantee, right? Just to make sure we've got a full picture. These are all the ways, the things that make us special help deliver on the things that are important to the audience, right? And here's the good news. Even with super important topics, like your business, right? What's more important than that? Even with super important topics, mapping audience desires to your capabilities, it ought to take like 30 minutes. 30 minutes flat, maybe less, maybe a lot less. And it's going to be one of the highest value half hours you can ever spend. Up until now, this technique should be kind of fun, right? But here's the one part that you may kind of hate a little bit. It's always the part that kind of makes me antsy, right? After you draw those lines from all the top audience desires to the applicable capability or benefits you offer, you're almost surely going to have some orphans in your capabilities list. That is, you're going to have some things in your capability list that just have no lines attached, right? Simple as that. This is as powerful as it is painful. You found benefits or capabilities of your idea that don't directly support the conscious audience desires, don't directly support their priorities. And don't worry, this doesn't mean these benefits aren't real. It certainly doesn't mean you should take them out of your idea or out of your product. It just means these benefits don't directly support the most important, conscious, top of mind desires of your audience. So while they may make your product, your idea, your strategy more complete, and you know that because you designed it, they've not earned their way into being part of our top level story. So I refer to these things as orphans, so prepare yourself. Orphans may sometimes be something you really like, maybe even things you designed yourself, things that you find really important, but still, they got no lines attached. So okay, so how do we finish? We take a breath, we relax, and we eliminate the orphans. Now remember, we're only doing this for your story, right? We're going to remove the orphans, those orphan benefits, the orphan capabilities. We're going to remove them from your list. We accept that it may hurt a little bit. You may feel like you're killing off a benefit that you find really important. And you may have to even get rid of a lot of things that you think are important about your product. But I'm going to beg you to try. Because when you get weak and you don't want to do it anymore, just remember, you're only eliminating those because your audience told you they don't care about them. Or at least they don't care about them yet until you've had a chance to really educate them a little bit. If you really need strength, remember, you're eliminating these things from your story to be more compelling, to be more persuasive. You're not removing them from your product, just your story. And I promise you, leaving in details that don't matter to an audience, that don't make the story or the presentation or the conversation more effective, will make that engagement, that conversation fly off the rails faster than anything else I know. When you start throwing in detail that people don't care about, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're just going to stop stop listening. So even if you know it's important, if they consciously can't relate to that importance yet, it's not going to help your story, all right? This step, no matter how painful, is going to make you better at your job, and it's going to improve your ability to get people to do what you want. Now here's the deal. I want you to be confident that this technique is real. So let's get away from our mythical company for a second and talk about our real company. I'm working with the CEO of an incredibly cool tech company that is changing the way a giant multi-billion-dollar industry works. The CEO has been in this industry for over 20 years, so he knows all the players really well. He knows his potential customers, he knows his potential investors, he knows what they do every day, he knows what frustrates them, he knows how he can change their life. With his engineering team, he made a product that's going to make all these people more efficient, that's going to make every person who uses his product better at their job. And he's a smart guy. He knows a great product is no guarantee that he gets to earn the right to revolutionize his industry. And he also knows everyone's busy, and he knows they've heard big promises before. So he knows each audience needs a slightly different story, and the question is, what story? So he went through my process, and he generously allowed me to use his final mapping after blurring out just enough detail so you can hide what he's really doing in his company. And I'm showing it to you so you know that a real, well-funded, industry-changing company can use the lessons of this course just like you are, so your company should be using these lessons too. Before I jump away, it's worth noticing that what looks like a long and complicated list of desires on the left, you see, if you check on the list, there's a lot of stuff. Remember, we said like 3 to 5 things, right? Why are there so many? His left side is long because he created a single list on one piece of paper for 6 different audiences. So each of those bold ones you see on the left, those are actually different audiences. So they range from the second one only has 2 priorities to others that have the 4 or 5 items. And so I just don't want you to think that he's suddenly doing this with way more desires and more priorities than you are. He's narrowed down the list of what makes his product and company special to the small number of things on the right, and then he's got multiple audiences on the left. But the approach is identical. The approach is the exact same thing. Best of all, I love this part. Best of all, you notice the low-tech colored pens that he used to draw lines from audience desires to company capabilities. I love that he did that. It works great for him. Just do whatever feels good for you. And at this point, he is in incredibly good shape for coming up with his stories, for his pitches, for the foundation of his website, all the things he's going to create for all these key audiences. When you do it, you're going to be in that kind of great shape too. And at this point, once you've drawn those lines, you are in the same fabulous position that CEO is in, because you are done with what I call the story structure, right? I say structure because you know exactly the content for your persuasive story. You know exactly the topics you're going to cover, and you even have a starting point for the order that you're going to cover them. All right, you don't have the exact words yet, and that's next, but what you have is something far more valuable. Completing your structure is by far the hardest, most important, most powerful step in creating persuasive story to get people to do what you want them to do. It is a timeless skill that most people, and I'm sorry to say even most marketing people, they never master. And you've done it easily, one step at a time. Whether you are selling a product, getting approval from your board of directors, or getting 1,000 people excited in your keynote presentation, the lines you've drawn will become the first draft of your story. In the next lesson, we're simply going to turn each of those lines you drew into words. Each line you drew from left to right, each line is going to become this natural, conversational, easy to understand sentence. I cannot overstate how much easier it is to pick words when you know your structure is right. You'll be confident, and you should be confident. I am not exaggerating when I say in 20 years of using this process, it has never failed me. I get nervous. When I start a project, I'm always nervous. Is it going to work? Can I figure out what people want? Can I figure out what that audience needs? Can I figure out how to persuade them? Do I have enough benefits? Do I have enough things that make my client special? Is there a connection? I'm telling you, in 20 years, because we've picked audiences that matter, we did that in an earlier lesson, we picked audiences that need what we do. This process has never failed me, whether my clients are selling something, raising money, building websites, getting their sales team and internal employees to do the right thing, writing press release, whatever it is, it hasn't failed me because it automatically connects what makes us special to what people care about, right? So in the next lesson, we're going to look at how to convert those lines you've drawn, those connections between needs and what we offer, how we convert those into words. With that last step, with that one last step, we reach our ultimate goal, a story to get people to do what we need. That's going to help your business, and it's going to help your life. So I will see you in the next lesson. Let's go now. And you are in an incredibly powerful position too, because you are done with what I call the story structure. I call the story structure because you know exactly the content for your persuasive story. You even know the order of the points that you're going to be making. You don't have the exact words yet. That's totally okay. We're going to cover that next. But you have something far more valuable, because completing the structure is by far the hardest, most important, most critical thing you can do on your way to a persuasive story. It is a timeless skill that most people, even most sales and marketing people, never master. And you've done it easily, one step at a time. Whether you're selling a product, getting approval for one of your initiatives, or trying to get 1,000 people excited at your next keynote, whatever it is, the lines that you've drawn are going to become the structure of the story that you will offer them. In the next lesson, we're simply going to take all those connections, all those lines, and we're going to put them into words. We're going to do it simply, and we're going to do it easily, because we're going to be conversational, and we're just going to talk to our audience. I cannot overstate how much easier it is to create your story when you already have the structure. You'll be confident, and you should be, because you've done the homework to connect desires to capabilities. I am not exaggerating when I say that in 20 years, this process has never failed me. Of course, I start every project a little nervous. I don't know if it's going to work as well as the last 20 years of projects have gone, but it always does, because we pick our audience based on people we can support. We think about our audience to understand their needs, and we connect directly to those needs, which is inherently and automatically a tailored story just for them. So in the next lesson, we're going to talk about how to convert those lines into the words that we're going to use in our story. Simply, easily, conversational. With that last step, we reach our ultimate goal, a persuasive story that gets people to do what you need them to do. And with that, you will improve your company and you will improve your life. I'll see you in the next lesson. It's where everything comes together.